Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Matthew Flanigan with the Wargamer.com, and today we're going to be looking at the new Paradox game, March of the Eagles. This is going to be a Let's Play or an AAR more than anything. There's going to be a written review coming up shortly to Wargamer.com, but this is going to give you kind of a visual look at the game. Always helps to kind of get a look at the game in play, I would say, often more than just a written review, but as I said, that will be following. Now, as you can see here, if you're looking at the map and if you're familiar with Crusader Kings 2, this map looks very similar. That's because the game runs on the Clausewitz engine, just like Crusader Kings 2, so the game is powered by the same engine. The game is very different, however, as you will see shortly. Despite looking very similar and having many similar aspects, the game is not just a reskinning of the Crusader Kings 2 game. It's a much more military-focused game. Now, for this video, I wanted to look at something a little bit different. In the game, you can play as 8 of the major European powers: France, Britain, Russia, Spain, Austria, Prussia, the Ottomans, or Sweden. Generally, in a Napoleonic game, you're probably going to look at, the major players: Austria, Russia, Prussia, Britain, or France. I wanted to look at one less well-known, or not so much well-known, but less popular, in Sweden. Sweden was a power in decline from her peak at the start of the 18th century. Sweden has declined steadily. The nation really only had, I believe at this time, about 3.4 million people. So when you compare it to some of the other European powers, it's very, very small. And to me, that made it interesting, to play one of the... They're still considered a major power in this time, but this is really their last, to my knowledge anyway, the last time they'd really be considered a major power on the world stage. Now, during the Napoleonic Wars, it was a very tumultuous time for Sweden. They ended up losing Finland early in the Napoleonic Wars, around, I believe it was 1807, to Russia. And then ended up taking Norway from Denmark in 1814 as the wars were kind of wrapping up. So it was kind of a back and forth affair for Sweden. Now in this game, my goal is to take Norway from Denmark. This game takes place from 1805 till 1820. I'm not going to play for the full 15 years, but I do want to take Norway from Denmark, and I'm not really going to take any serious time here. I'm going to just kind of evaluate my position here. You see I have a main army of about 20,000 near the capital, 10,000 down here in the south guarding against any aggression by the Norwegians, and another about 11,000 over there to the right near the Russian border. So I can't just throw everyone into Norway. There is kind of a land bridge where that army was near the Denmark, Sweden border, kind of across the, I don't know if that's the Baltic, but kind of down toward Copenhagen. You can actually march troops across. So I've got to leave some troops there, and I don't want to leave my front against Russia abandoned, so we're just going to send the main army from Stockholm. Hopefully that's enough to take Norway. As you see here, the game has more direct control over the military. You've got quite a few numbers of units. There's multiple types of cavalry, multiple types of infantry. You have even more options if you're a major power like France, where there's multiple types of guard infantry. They've even got supply wagons. So that's definitely a big difference between Crusader Kings 2 and this game, March of the Eagles, is that it's a much more military-focused game. There really are not a whole lot of diplomatic options. It's a military-first game, and that kind of works. I mean, it's a game that takes place in 1805 and ends in 1820. There you see on the right the diplomatic options. They're pretty similar to Crusader Kings 2, but because of all the family intrigue and dynasty features in Crusader Kings, it feels more fully fleshed out. I would say one of the struggling, one of the aspects that's most difficult to simulate in any kind of strategy game is diplomacy. And I don't really think, in this game included, I don't really think anyone's really captured that kind of authentic feel to diplomacy that these types of games really deserve. And I wouldn't really fault anyone for it. I don't know how you could have a realistic AI and realistic diplomatic kind of game. I think you'd really need to... I think computers and AI needs to be dramatically better than what it is now to have a real simulation feel, to get to the extent for diplomacy that we are, in terms of quality, that we are already at in terms of the military aspects. I think we're quite a ways away from that. But anyway, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and... what can I build? I don't have enough money for big end ships, the ships of the line, but another frigate could be useful. So I think I might build one of those. Maybe not quite yet. What the heck. Let's go ahead and build a frigate. There's two different classes of ships in the game. There's heavy ships, which are ships of the line. There are first rate ships of the line, which are supposed to be like first class and second class ships of the line. Basically, those were large wooden warships having anywhere between 80 guns to 120 is what a first-rate ship of the line would be considered. Technically, they were first and second, but in this game, I believe a second-rate ship of the line is supposed to be the 64 or 74 gun ships that made up the bulk of the navies of the world. Now, in this game, it does seem that the ships tend to be, first-rate ships of the line more often than anything. Up at the top of the screen, you see I'm kind of scrolling through here. On the far left is your money. The second one in is your prestige. Then the 21,837 is the manpower. So you do have limits, based on your population, how many men you can raise, how many reinforcements you can raise. Then there's the number of leaders. And then to the far right, I'll be honest, I don't even remember what that is. Just kind of looking over the map here. I've got that little strip of Swedish Pulmonaria. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. But I have no desire to expand here. Like I said, in this game, my primary goal here in this game that we're looking at is to take Norway. Expanding Swedish Pulmonaria either means fighting Prussia, who is ginormous, or fighting that little state next to Prussia. Now, my relations with Prussia aren't great, so I am going to utilize diplomacy here to improve my relations with both Prussia and Russia. I don't want Prussia going after Pulmonaria, and I don't want Russia going after my back door while I'm trying to fight the Danes, who I believe the Danes are going to be a pretty big, pretty even fight there. There was Mecklenburg, that's the other state there, but I really don't want to expand on the mainland. I want to expand in an area that I can easily defend, and Norway's an area I can easily defend. There's no land bridge into Norway. You've got to have control of the sea, which basically means either the Brits, the French. The Brits and the French really would be the only ones that would be a threat. I mean, other nations have navies, but Russia wouldn't go all the way around and attack Norway, and Spain and other countries with powerful navies are too far away. Prussia can't get their navy there. My navy is more powerful than Prussia's. So really, Denmark is Norway's an ideal place for your first conquest as Sweden, because you can expand your kingdom pretty substantially in terms of size, and I believe revenue. I don't know what it actually brings in the game, but I do know that historically Norway was a very important area for Denmark. It brought in a pretty substantial amount of their revenue, more, I believe, through trade and whatnot. Not that it was their biggest source of revenue, but it was more or less gravy, so it was that extra bit of money that allowed them to spend on things like, munitions and ships and whatnot. And when Denmark lost that, they really never really recovered. Granted, you could argue that had more to do with the British destruction of the Danish fleet at Copenhagen, but the fact that they didn't have Norway anymore, that significant source of extra revenue that they had lost out on, definitely played a part in Norway's decline in relevance. Norway's in a similar situation as Sweden here at this time in that they've got a small population, a large but not very well populated nation, and a limited ability to build, larger ships. As ships became larger and larger, both Sweden and Norway were kind of, or not Sweden and Norway, Sweden and Denmark were both restricted by their ports being fairly shallow draft ports. So that as ships got bigger, a lot of these navies continued to build, 64 gun ships or, 74 gun ships as well, but mainly 64 gun ships, which were lighter and more shallow draft and easier to operate in the Baltic, but were at a significant disadvantage against British warships, which were much larger, and their home ports didn't have to worry about that. You see the same difficulty with the Dutch fleets in Holland. But I'm going to try and go ahead, and what I'm doing here is I'm looking to move some troops over to the main army that's going to be invading Norway. I don't want to strip the Russian front or the front across from Copenhagen too much, but I'm trying to improve relations with both Prussia and Russia, so I think I can probably take some troops, still leave some troops in the east as kind of a delaying force, and then take some troops from Pomerania and then or Pomeranian front, as well as the Finnish front, since I'm exerting significant diplomatic efforts to keep the Prussians and Russians off my back. That should allow me to bring a couple thousand more troops into the attack on Norway. And that's, as Sweden, a couple thousand troops as France really isn't anything. I mean, you've got the Grand Army is over 190,000 men when the game starts. Sweden's entire army isn't even 100,000 men. It's like 50,000 to start. So, even just moving over maybe another 5,000-6,000 men will help substantially. Now let's speed time up a bit. I'm one of those guys, I enjoy playing at just ×1 speed. It takes forever to play through a game, but I don't know. Doesn't look like Russia has anything over there, so they're not threatening anyway, so I can move these guys out. Not that I'd be able to stop the Russian horde if I tried. But I'm one of those guys who enjoys playing the game kind of at a slower speed. I'm not really in a rush, and I don't really mind just kind of taking my time. For the sake of this video, though, I am going to speed things up a bit. We don't want to make a 5-hour video just to play through, a year or two, or however long it takes me to take Norway. Okay. You keep seeing these little things pop up on the screen regarding coalitions and whatnot. The game does operate under a coalition system, so you can form a coalition against France, or Britain can France can form a coalition against Britain, and basically they're just large alliance blocks that form to fight a common enemy. It's based on the period. During the Napoleonic Wars, there were I believe there were 7 coalitions which were formed from the beginning of the French Revolution through the Napoleonic Wars against the French. Right now, during 1805, it would have been the 4th coalition, which Sweden did join and fought against France. I am not going to do that. That just is, in my opinion, stupid. I mean, the most I could probably get onto the mainland is 30,000 to 40,000 troops, and I have no desire to get my army destroyed. As I said, the Grand Army is over 190,000. I do think a game like this could benefit from a more useful alliance system. As it stands right now, you can be allied to another country and you can be fighting war alongside them, but your armies always operate independently. There's no real way to join armies, and I think for a Napoleonic game that's something that's important. I really enjoy this game, and you'll read more about it in the review in the coming days. But I do believe that is one critical flaw to this type of game. I think with Crusader Kings 2 you can kind of get away with it. As a feudalistic kingdom, alliances, even when they exist, it's not as important to fight battles together. In Napoleonic time frame, however, I mean, almost all the major battles, there were two sides fighting together, and the only way for that to happen in this game is if you basically follow the AI, and follow where their army's marching. You can't get the AI to march with you. At least I haven't been able to so far. If it's possible, I'm not aware of it. You can't really... Okay, well, one moment, sorry. Looks like Denmark is now a member of the French coalition and is now fighting the British. That could be good, because it could mean that they're going to get distracted. So that could be good for me. The British may draw off a substantial amount of their forces. Hopefully they don't land in Norway, though. I'd rather take the whole area myself. I don't want to have to split it up. Anyway, as I was saying, that it makes it difficult to fight a battle like Austerlitz or a battle like Leipzig, where there are multiple nations historically were involved, but in this game there's really no way to coordinate with your allies. That's definitely something that needs to be better thought out. There needs to be a way for two sides' armies to merge together and fight together, and have one person command them, maybe the coalition leader, or have a ranking where, you know, different powers are rated so that, you know, the coalition leader, for example, might always be in command of every army, or base it off size. You know, the more men in the army of one nation, the higher the priority they get in commanding the armies. Maybe as a player you could have an override if you didn't want to follow the AI's command, but that the AI would more or less always follow you. I mean, you could even simulate in-game or in alliance disputes that way, where you'd have, you know, different countries disputing control or command of the armies. I don't think that would really fit in a grand strategy game, but it's worth a thought. I definitely think, and just to interrupt here, I am assigning commanders to different flanks. Like I mentioned, the game being similar to Crusader Kings 2, but at the same time being very different. This is one similarity in that armies have, you know, center, left, and right flanks if they're large enough, and you can appoint commanders to the different flanks. And in this game, because it's based on history and it's based on a specific time period, these are historical figures and their traits are based on their historical characters. You can, however, earn traits. So, you know, as you fight, as you go through the game, as your generals fight more battles, they gain more experience. They can earn traits which make them better or worse. Generally, if you're successful in battle, your guy's going to become better. So, you know, he may not be Napoleon. I don't believe anyone can really improve that much, but he is going to be a much better general if he has, you know, numerous successes. It's not all about stacking the most men in your corner, if you will. I've got about 30,000 men here, roughly what the Swedes, and by the way, I'm taking a look at the idea tool here. These are different things that you can kind of research. You know, you can research different technologies that set you apart. Every nation has its own, or every major nation has its own grouping of ideas that are specific to you. So you saw there were some Swedish ideas in the lower right. So every nation has its own little unique things that set it apart and give it an advantage over others, and then there's also some generic stuff that everyone can share and develop at the same time, and that'll influence different things like your economy, your military, your production speeds of warships, things like that. But as I was saying, we got about 30,000 men there. That's roughly what the Swedes brought to Leipzig at the Battle of Nations. Mecklenburg is at war with Prussia. Well, it looks like I'm going to be... I don't think they're going to hold out against Prussia. Looks like I will be surrounded... The Pomeranian area will be surrounded by Prussia, so I need to make sure that I've made good with them. We can increase relations with Mecklenburg just in case, but... wow, even more nations are now at war with Denmark. Let's go ahead and insult them. It's going to decline my relations all the way down. I believe negative 200 is the declared war, by the way. So, there's quite a few territories here, but hopefully Denmark doesn't have too many troops here. Now down here, as I said, near Copenhagen, or Haven, there is a land bridge between Denmark and Norway. I believe. So that frigate's almost done. We're almost ready for war. Debating building another ship, but I don't really think I need to do that. I think my navy's pretty much stronger than... I believe my navy's pretty much stronger than Denmark's. Let's see, I've got to wait a day or two before I can declare war. Anytime you do a diplomatic action, like I did when I sent the insult, it takes a certain number of days until another diplomat reaches that country. And you are limited with, you have a certain number of diplomats that you can use, so you are limited with how often you can, do diplomatic actions. As you see there, April 24th is when the next one will arrive, and I'll be able to declare war on them. Prussian Navy's fighting the Danes. Prussians are going to lose, that's for sure. Down here on the right, you've kind of seen me click there and pull things up. It'll give you different notices. So one thing that can happen is a nation can issue war subsidies where it'll help another nation's economy by giving them a certain amount of money to help fight. That's an important inclusion in this game, given the British often subsidized the Continental armies fighting against the French as a way to kind of encourage them fighting the French to help pay for the costs of some of the war. So it's definitely a nice feature to include in here. I also like playing as Sweden. Well, actually, one moment. We're going to go ahead and declare war. Their independence is guaranteed by Spain, so that could be a problem. Spain may declare war on me, but Spain's far enough away. I don't think they'll yield too much help to the Danes. Let's go ahead and blockade Copenhagen. Yep, Spain went ahead and declared war on me, so we're now at war with Denmark and Spain. Like I said, I don't think Spain's going to be able to yield too much assistance. Oh, the Danish Navy, or the Danes are down there. They're fighting the Russians. Let's go ahead and get down there. Looks like they beat the Russians. But we are now engaged in a naval fight. So combat is resolved the same way Crusader Kings 2 is. You don't really get to see a whole lot of the actual fighting. It's more or less simulated. You can kind of see how the fight's going. The Danes only have 3 light ships and 3 ships of the line versus my 5 ships of the line and 2 light ships. Light ships are galleys or frigates. So my men have a significant advantage here. I don't know why it has 2 down there. I don't know if that means... Well, I'm not really sure. 6 with a small 2. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I better get these troops in here into Norway. I've massed my troops near Frigestad. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That was the main Danish fortress guarding the approaches into Denmark. So that's my goal there, is to knock this field army out first so they don't go invading other parts of Sweden. This small little field army here, which I outnumber almost 10 to 1, and then going for that city, or the fortress of Frigestad. It guarded the entrance to Oslo, essentially. Oh, well, I was victorious over here, so I sank 2 ships of the line. They've got 1 left and 3 light ships, and they damaged nothing of mine. Great. So now they're going to be stuck in port there, so I should be able to keep the Danish fleet all bottled up now. But as I was saying, Frigestad did, I believe it was a fort that guarded the entrance essentially to the Oslo Ford, or Oslo, although in the game it looks like it's called Christiana, not Oslo yet. And there I won a victory on land against that land army. As you see, I mentioned earning traits. I earned a trait of entrencher. So now we're going to move down to Frigestad. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, so all you gamers out there who are watching this, please give me a break. I am well aware that I'm not the best pronunciator of Scandinavian words. Looks like Mecklenburg is overrun by Prussia. They'll probably annex them, so I'll only have to worry about keeping Prussia happy. relations there aren't great, so we're going to go ahead and try and improve them a little bit more. It looks like the declaration of war on Denmark has kind of hurt my relations with them a bit. Russia's improving, though. We're up to positive 16. Generally, nations aren't going to attack other nations they've got positive relations with. So, marching down there. They've got 2,400 men. I don't know where they're going. This is good. I don't see any other armies here. Surprised Denmark seems so lightly guarded, at least the frontier. The Swedes had many times attacked Denmark, especially during the Great Northern War. They made several forays into Norway and several times were turned back. As you see there, that war score part, as you fight battles and win battles, they will influence your war score. So essentially, if you get to 100% war score, generally you're able to annex a country at 100%. It means they have no capability, they're almost entirely occupied. And different things will influence that. So the bigger the battle, the bigger the victory, the more war score you get. You get more war score for certain types of provinces, so you take the enemy's capital, that's going to be a big war score benefit. It also influences... Wait a minute. What's that over there? Looks like those territories are occupied. Are they British? Oh yeah, the British are at war with the Danes. I could join the coalition, but I don't really want to fight France. I'm just trying to fight Denmark. Looks like some of those areas, though, are occupied. I'm guessing by the British. I don't want to fight... I don't want to fight Norway. I don't want to not get all of Norway because the Brits decided to take it when I wanted it. I've only got that small little corner so far. Anyway, as I was saying, the... Oh, wait a minute. Where are they going? I want to assault it because I really don't want to wait forever to wait for the siege to go through. As you see there on the lower left, it gives kind of an option to assault. I'm also suffering 5% attrition, so every day I lose 5% of my troops. Now, you do gain reinforcements, so over time that will, balance out. If you're getting more reinforcements than attrition, it won't really affect you. But generally, in my experience, you want at least 20 to 1 advantages in terms of how many men the attacker has versus the defender if you're attacking a fortress. 10 to 1, I'm pretty sure I would lose. I don't have enough heavy artillery. So we'll keep besieging them. Hopefully those 2,400 men right there that you see marching around, that's actually included in the total number on the bottom left where it says 4,000 men. So if those guys move to a different territory, then I'll be able to take this town more easily. Oh goodness, Denmark is being overrun. Prussia's at war with Denmark now too. At least that's what it looks like based on those occupied. The whole country's going to get occupied before I can take my slice. I just wanted Denmark. Alright, so Swedish ideas. I can go ahead and research that. Like I said, ideas give you different benefits and whatnot. And the Danes dropped some troops in on my flank. We'll go ahead and send this army there to help protect it. Swedes are blockaded, and it doesn't look like they've got men to spare at the moment to invade Sweden proper, so I should be able to spare some troops there. But they did get out of that province now, so only 1,700 men there. I can go ahead and launch an assault. The combat screens are the same as Crusader Kings 2, as I said. Gained some traits, making me better. So took Frickerstad. Fighting another battle down there, another victory. These are all pretty small battles, so despite the fact that I'm beating the Danes pretty badly in each of these, they're not going to affect the war score a whole lot. You see, they're only giving me like 1/10 of a point on the war score. Won another battle. Oh, guess the Danes tried to get out, and I sunk their last ship of the line. Stupid British. In the way. So what? I only got like 4 of these border provinces now. As you see, that screen there gives you kind of a summary of, we'll pull it up a little bit later, but it gives a summary of how the... Real quick, guys, I'm going to go ahead and split this video into 2 parts, just so it's a little bit easier to follow and view. So, since it's all about an hour all told, go ahead and check out the rest of the video here in part 2. Thanks.